Luanne had been really agitated lately. After seeing a prank pulled on a kid at school, she had been dying to pull a prank of her own. But she had promised her family that she would never pull a prank again. If she broke that promise, then she didn't know what would happen. Though she guessed the whole family would hate her and either never speak to her again or never trust her again. She was now sitting on her bed with Mr. Coconut's in her hand. "It's getting really tough not to pull pranks, huh?" Mr. Coconut said. "Yeah, if I don't pull pranks soon, I might go crazy." "Sorry, Toots, but you pulled that into a station long ago." "Are you saying I'm crazy?" No, you were crazy before. Now you're just completely insane." "I'm not insane." "Oh yeah? Try telling that to your family on all of your previous April Fool's Day. You could have asked them that question, and they would either screamed yes, or they would have just said no out of complete fear." "I know that, and after the help I got, I realized I acted such a complete monster on that day." "You know that's probably why your younger sisters never wanted to hang around with you, because they were scared of you." "Yeah, some of those pranks I've pulled were probably scarred them for life." "Yeah, but they're pretty dumb like little kids, who would pretty much make the whole family happy if they just disappear." Knowing Lincoln and Luna, if Lana went missing, they'd search till the end of the day they die. "You know, you could easily get rid of them. All you gotta do is drug them and take them outside, slice their throats open, and then bury them. No one would never know." "That's enough of kind talk from you, mister." She then slapped his face, making his head spin around until it stopped. "Geez, it was just a suggestion. No need to get violent." Throughout the entire day, Luanne had been telling one of her bad jokes after another, either by herself or with Mr. Coconut's, and it was starting to get on all of her siblings' nerves. I swear, if I hear one more terrible joke, I am going to scream," Luna said to Lincoln. "Same here. She really should choose a different career, like baking or something like that," Lincoln replied, before Luanne came up to them. "Hey Lincoln, what do you call a person with a briefcase? A branch manager." "Yeah, get it?" "Guess you've really heard that one, huh?" "No, it just wasn't funny. The first time I like all your jokes." Luanne gasped and frowned. "Oh, and I suppose you could tell funnier jokes?" Lincoln shrugged. "Probably." "All right then, funny boy. Try and tell a good joke." "Fine. What's the difference between a jailer and a jeweler?" The two girls shrugged. "When one sells watches and the other watches sells." Luna burst out laughing, while Luanne was forcing a frown. "That's not funny," she said. "Really? Well, my joke made Luna laugh, whereas yours didn't." Luanne scowled. "Tell me, Luanne, out of all the jokes that you've told us today, how many of them did we laugh at?" Luanne fought hard, trying to remember how many times her siblings laughed at her jokes today, but she drew was blank. "See, you're not funny, Luanne. Nearly all of your jokes are lame and are going to make us groan more than laugh. Your ventriloquism act is mediocre at best, and about 40% of the time you get booed off stage at open mic nights. Also, let's not forget all about the horrible puns you used to make, along with the stupid and deadly pranks you pulled over the years, which I'm surprised it hasn't permanently traumatized our younger sisters. You're not funny, and you should find something else that you're good at, because comedy definitely isn't for you," Lincoln said. "I see," looks at Luna. "Do you agree with him?" Luanne asked. "Sorry, sis, but yeah, you should really find something else you're good at," Luna said. "Okay, then." She walked off casually. "Oh, I see hell about to break loose," Lincoln said with Luna nodding. Luanne was now sitting on her bed with a blank look on her face. Lincoln's little chew-out section with her did not to an extent, but never had been funny, and it had really gotten to her. Had to act the fact that he insulted her. Ventriloquism act had put a percentage on how many times that she had been booed off stage. She was now raging mad on the inside, and then she held up Mr. Coconut's. "How dare that little prick insult me and lend me into the lesser extent to you?" Mr. Coconut said. "Where the hell did he raise some good points?" Luanne replied. "Well, you've built your whole life around comedy, and that asshole rants about how unfunny you really are." "Yeah, he really did go off on a bit of a rant there." "I say, you show that white-haired bastard what a real joke is." "How do I do that?" "Well, his birthday's coming up in 2 weeks. You should do something that will make him die laughing." By die, you mean metaphorically, right? Oh, no, I mean die for real. You know what, Mr. Coconuts? What? Her face darkened, and as an insane grin came to her face. I agree with you 100%. Lifting up the mattress, and she saw her sketchbook, which she used to plan out her huge pranks. Grabbing it, she opened up to the last prank. She made sure it and pulled it down, sketching it down. Lincoln's final birthday surprise. It surprisingly took Luanne about an hour to come up with everything. I'm not sure if I'll have enough money to buy all the materials to make this. Well, the only thing siblings are good for, she said with a huge grin. Later that night, Luanne snuck down into the basement and got to work on soundproofing and blocking out any peeping eyes and taping over Lisa's hidden cameras and placing the cardboard over the basement's small window. Then one nice job was done. She struck into everyone's rooms and stole whatever money she could find. Which ended up to pretty much $574, plus all the money she saved up, leaving her with about $785. This should be enough. Now I just need to buy the stuff as soon as my birthday surprise will be complete. After telling her family that she decided to walk to school on the Monday morning, she played hooky and headed to the biggest hardware store in Royal Woods. Instead of buying everything she had on her list, once she had everything to pay the store to help deliver it to her house on the same day, after everything was delivered and taken down into the basement, Luanne raced back to the school just as the bell rang, signaling that everyone could go home. Fortunately for her sisters didn't question as to why they hadn't seen her today. They walked home and she spoke up. Hey girls, you know that Lincoln's birthday is coming up. They all nodded. Well, I was thinking of making something super special for him. And what that pray would tell would be, Lori asked. It's a surprise and I'll make him in the basement. As much as the basement will be off limits to everyone until his birthday. And before you asked, I'll do the laundry as well as the dishes. Fine by me, Lori said. It's some sort of elaborate prank, Luanne. I'm going to pound you until there's nothing left, Luna threatened. Luna, I promise I will never pull a prank again, and I mean it, Luanne replied calmly, although Luna was still suspicious. The rest of the week, once she had finished her homework, Luanne would spend the rest of her night down in the basement, only coming up for dinner and bathroom breaks. When she had to go to bed, she would lock the basement door with a key and keep it with her so no one would sneak down in the night and see her work. It was now Sunday, and Luanne was currently at the dentist, getting her braces checked up. While this was happening, Lincoln snuck into Luanne and Luna's room and began snooping around to try to find anything that would tell him if Luanne had planned for his birthday was going to be something nice or just end up being a huge prank. Lenny blurted out that Luanne was up when Lincoln had asked why Luanne was downstairs in the basement so much. After about 5 minutes of searching, he found a large sketchbook under Luanne's mattress. As he looked through it, he saw the contained diagrams, notes, and sketches of all the large-scale pranks that he had done to the past as well, as a pun to say when the prank did set off. Skipping to the page that had a sticky note, sticking out of the top, he saw a large drawing of a mini track with a prank in each of the corner that was best to set up in the basement, and with the words, Lincoln's final birthday surprise, was at the top, and he knew it was for him. Pulling out his phone and took pictures of all the pictures and pages for his birthday surprise before putting the notebook back under the mattress. He then headed back to his room and read over the notes, using his chest of drawers to barricade his door, and then he actually started looking at the pictures, and what he saw terrified him. In the first trap he would have seen is the piston around pound his groin 3 times, with a note saying that it would most likely shatter his pelvis. Next, he would get struck in the stomach with chase and face with a bat, and then he would be punched in all sides of his head, spring-powered boxing gloves, and after that he'd be shocked by the tasers, and that would wake him up if he fell unconscious. Next, he'd be sprayed in the face by a highly corrosive acid, and then would be followed by a flamethrower. Then a blast of high-pressured water to put out any flames, and then he would be sprayed with Joker Bland laughing gas, with him finally killed him with an Iron Maiden that would impale him and crush his whole body. He didn't even know if this was some kind of sick joke, but it was something kind of bad. He knew it was going to happen on his birthday. Big or small, it was now the night before his birthday, and with the girls saying sing-song voices that his birthday was tomorrow. Guess who's turning 12 tomorrow? Which he enjoyed. After having gone ready for bed and headed downstairs to talk with the parents, he found them on the couch watching TV. Mom, Dad, he started to get their attention. You two love me, right? Of course we do, sweetie, Rita said. Did one of your sisters say we didn't? Lynn Sr. asked. No, they didn't, and you know how Luanne's been saying she's been working on something special for my birthday? They all nodded. Well, I have a feeling it's going to be something bad. So I was hoping that you two could stay up for the night and stop her if she tries anything suspicious, please, he said. His parents could see that he seemed to be freaked out greatly by something. Okay, son, we'll stay up in the dark and stop her if she comes down. Thank you, he said. He hugged them both before heading back upstairs. Rita and Lynn Sr. gave each other worried looks, both now having a bad feelings. Wakey, wakey, Linky. Lincoln then slowly opened his eyes and gave a groan. As he tried to move, however, he found himself restricted. Once he gained his bearings, he found himself tied to a chair in the basement where Luanne's death trap was. Lincoln's eyes narrowed as he unwarrantably cursed to his parents. Last time, I count on those two for anything. I take it you're referring to Mom and Dad. Luanne started as she came down into view, now fully dressed as a clown with a huge mallet slung over her shoulder. Those two really did try to stop me, but I managed to get them with a needle of anesthesia each, so they won't be waking up anytime soon. I take it that you found out my plans. Yeah, so I guess I ruined the surprise you had for me. Not entirely, oh dear brother. She then casually strolled over to the object covered by the blanket, and when she removed the blanket, however, Lincoln was shocked to see it was a person, and who, by the looks of it, about his age, wearing a sack over their head. Luanne, who's that? Lincoln asked with a low tone. Maybe this will answer your question, she replied. Then she picked up a container off the floor and opened up before pulling out what looked like a mask by his hair, and in front of it proudly, tell me this looks very familiar to you. Lincoln then looked at the mask before his eyes widened a bit. It looks like, no, it can't be. She's not that much of a monster. He then saw red liquid that looked like a lot like blood dripping out of it. No, he thought, as his eyes widened even more. Ah, so you've put the pieces together. She then took the sack off the person's head, revealing to be completely bandaged. Come on, Paige, time to wake up, Luanne said as she roughly shook Paige, making her come to. Paige gave out muffled screams at the moment due to how much pain she was in. While she's certainly living, let me show you the wonderful surgery Dr. Loud has performed on your girlfriend. And when she began unwrapping the bandages around Paige's head, Lincoln was horrified of what Luanne had done to her. Not only she removed all of her skin, save for the eyelids, but she also had removed all the muscle of her face, along with the ears and nose, and the only thing holding her jaw up was a wire that looped around the small hole that had been drilled for her teeth. You're a fucking monster, Luanne. Oh, I know. She pulls out a needle. I am a compassionate monster. And she injected the substance into Paige's arm, causing her to scream to turn into a sigh of relief. Paige looked around, confused a bit, before she remembered what had happened. In this flashback, she had gone back to bed like normal. Then she was woken up herself to find herself strapped down on the table, with Luanne standing over her, wearing a lab coat, scrubs, gloves, and a surgical mask around her neck. Hello, bitch. Have a nice sleep? What the? Luanne, where are we? In my basement. But enough about that. You'll see, Paige. It's Lincoln's birthday tomorrow, and I have decided to make him a gift that will make him die laughing. Paige looked and saw Luanne's complete death trap. But I fought for it a while, and I decided to add a bit more, which is where you come in. I remember several times in the past where you've assaulted me, so I decided to have a little payback as well. She then injected something to Paige's arm, which basically paralyzes her. Paige could only watch as Luanne pulled up her surgical mask and raised the scalpel before she began to slice her face off. After the flashback, Paige had shivered. She remembered that every slice and scrape Luanne had done to her. Behold, your new face, Luanne said as she held a mirror in front of Paige, causing her to scream. Aw, don't be so sad. You'll get front row seats watching your boyfriend get killed. Oh yeah, and that's over and done with, I'll crush your skull with this mallet, Luanne said, before proudly turning to her brother. So are you ready for your birthday surprise? Quick question first. What is it? When you were thinking this trap, did you take into account my strength? No. That's what I thought. With a grunt, he busted free from the ropes around him, tearing off the chair at the rails, and then threw it at Luanne before darting over to Paige, breaking her binders as well. Paige, go call the police, he ordered, as Luanne grabbed the mallet with a furious look on her face. You have me very sad, clown. She then swung the mallet at Lincoln, who dodged it. You're nothing but a burden to everyone in this family. Swinging the mallet again, smashing the hole in the track, Lincoln grabbed the piston and swung it at Luanne, who swung the mallet again. The two weapons collided, with the mallet being knocked out of Luanne's hands in the process. Lincoln then ran forward towards Luanne and punched her in the stomach, while at the same time she zapped him with a taser. The two backed away from each other, both of them having the hand on the spot where they'd been punched and zapped. The two then ran at each other and began throwing punches at each other. Luanne was unable to even land a blow on her little brother, was where he would be basically tenderizing her. With a hard shove, she knocked him backwards between each of her fingers, and then she began stabbing and wiping at him. This had been happening as Paige snuck upstairs and was now calling the police. 911, what's your emergency? The operator said. Hi, my name is Paige, and my friend's sister has gone insane. She's cut off my face and wired my mouth, and she's trying to kill my friend. Okay, sweetheart, calm down. I'll dispatch a unit immediately. Locking on to where the call was coming from, she informed the closest police unit that they were dispatched by an ambulance. Okay, sweetie, we need you to stay on the line for me, okay? Yee. Paige would then pause mid-sentence when she spotted something out of the corner of her eye. It was in the dining room. Turning on the light, she could only see Lincoln's parents lying on the ground, not moving. Oh my gosh, she killed her parents! She basically screamed on the phone, not knowing they had been simply drugged. Sweetheart, calm down. Are you sure they're dead? Paige looked closer and saw their chests moving. They're breathing. She started shaking them. Mr. and Mrs. Loud, wake up, she said, but she got no response from them. They're not waking up, she said, before she heard Lincoln yell out in pain. Back in the basement, Lincoln now had his hand on his bleeding side. Luanne had managed to get a lucky strike with the knives, going through the gasps of his right side of his rib cage. Nicking at his lungs in the process, Luanne licked his blood off of the knives and then went for another attack only for him to knock the knives out of her hands and headbutted her. As she stumbled back a bit from the blow, now seeing the stars, he grabbed one of the knives and stabbed her in the leg 3 times. Then followed up to a right hook and on the face, making it stumble back more until she landed on one of her workbenches. As Lincoln walked up to her, she spun around and launched a spring-powered boxing glove, striking him right in the face, which made him stumble back onto the boxing glove trap, which punched him on all the sides of his upper body. Darn, that trap was supposed to be a knockout. Boo, terrible. Get off stage, Lincoln taunted. His taunt seemed to make Luanne go even further over the edge. No, I am funny. I am. It's just the audience. No, please. I could do better next time. Next time. She then clutched her head and began hyperventilating through her clenched teeth as she thought about every groan, every insult, and every boost she had received in the past from the people. She then lifted her head, gave Lincoln the most insane look that he had ever seen before. I am funny, she started in a quiet voice, which quickly grew in volume. And I'm going to prove it by making everyone in this house die laughing. Pulling a large knife out of her pocket, she then gave out a loud scream and began running at him. Why do you have so many knives on you? He questioned, before he started dodging the swipes and stabs once again. Lincoln kept dodging until his back touched something, and he moved onto the side as Luanne's knife then came down and pierced through the canister of the acid she had set up, which would have sprayed all over Lincoln. When she yanked the knife back out, however, the pressure inside the canister caused the acid to spray out and almost covered the entire left side of her face with her whole left arm, dissolving her sleeve and glove in the process. She screamed in pain as the acid began to eat away at any skin it touched. Lincoln then looked around and saw the hose she was going for to use him. Grabbing, she turned it on and blasted her with the water, washing off any acid on her, and guided down the drain which had been installed recently. Luanne got to her feet as Lincoln had turned off the water, and she charged at him, screaming as she did, not only for Lincoln to swing the hose, smashing her across the face with the nozzle, dropping the hose and ran forward and punched her in the stomach before handling her across the melted side of her face, knocking her to the floor. I knew you had some mental issues, Luanne, but I didn't think they were this severe. If I may quote the Joker, madness as long as you know like gravity. And all it takes is a little push. She gets to her feet, and you, dear brother, are the only one who made that little push. Well, if I didn't, someone else would have. And then he smirked as he heard the sirens. It seems like your little madness trip of yours is coming to an end. But how? She then remembered someone who now wasn't there. That frickin' little bitch! She then yelled before she made a mad dash for the upstairs with Lincoln chasing after. Paige, run! He shouted. Paige, who had been standing near the front door, heard the cry and turned to see Luanne racing towards her. She started to run just as the police arrived and ran straight into the arms of the police officers that had gotten out of the car. Luanne grabbed onto Paige's shirt and tried to pull it off when Lincoln wrapped his arm around Luanne's neck and threw her to the ground, where she was tasered by the police officer. The first officer was horrified of what he was seeing. Take her to a place where she'll never see daylight, Lincoln shouted, before he coughed up some blood, causing the cut on his inside to hurt more. About a minute later, another squad car arrived, followed by 2 ambulances. The paramedics were then just as shocked as everyone else was when they saw Paige. After the 3 kids had been examined, Luanne was handcuffed to the gurney and taken to the hospital with the officers going with them, while Lincoln and Paige were about to get into another ambulance as well. Lincoln, whose side has been patched up to stop the bleeding, suddenly remembered something. Wait, I'll be right back, he said. He went back to his house, came back with 2 minutes later with a beaker and green liquid, as well as a pair of wire cutters, then gave the paramedics a beacon. Half a fill of the syringe with the stuff and inject her into the arm, Lincoln more or less ordered, before he got back to work into cutting the wires on Paige's jaw. What is this stuff? The paramedics asked. It's overdrive. It will heal her in seconds, Lincoln said, as he cut the wires. Once the wires were cut, the paramedic, against its better judgment, injected the overdrive into Paige's arm. As soon as he pulled the needle out, he and Lincoln watched as the skin on her neck crawled up and covered her face and nose, with the ears forming before their hair sprouted out and grew until it was shoulder length. The paramedics almost had to use the defibrillators on himself. Due to this heart stopping, there before you go back to your old self, Lincoln said happily. Paige felt her head. Instead of feeling a bone, she felt her skin and hair. Oh, thank God, she said happily. Then she looked at Lincoln, and without another thought, she wrapped her arms around him and kissed him right then on the lips. Lincoln was surprised by this, but this was quick to return the kiss, making Paige lift a leg. An officer came up and saw the 2 kids kissing, before he turned to the paramedic and asked him and his partner to come inside and check on the parents. The paramedics had managed to wake up Lynn Sr. and Rita Loud. What's going on? Lynn Sr. asked, still not fully with it, while his wife was in the same boat. When they realized they were surrounded by paramedics and the police, they had finally become fully alert. Oh my God, is my baby okay? Where is he? Rita exclaimed. Calm down, ma'am. Your son is fine. Both Loud parents gave a sigh of relief at this. What did that bitch do to my son? Lynn Sr. demanded. That's where we would like to know, sir. Could you tell us how the events unfolded, which resulted in you and your wife being drugged? A police officer asked. Another flashback came up as Lynn Sr. and Rita had followed their son's wishes and stayed up. The 2 were sitting on their chairs near the front window of the dining room, so that if anyone entered they would slowly see them, but they wouldn't see them. After 12 o'clock had passed and they could hear someone moving around upstairs, after a while they heard someone come downstairs rather heavy. Due to her eyes being adjusted to the dark, they could see Luanne, dressed as a clown, carrying a limp Lincoln, and then she placed Lincoln on the floor and headed for their room. Realizing that they weren't, as she tiptoed around to try to find them. When she reached Lincoln, Rita turned on the lights, and Luanne froze like a deer caught in the headlights. She watched as they moved in front of her, stern looks on their faces. Hey, what are you guys doing up this late? She asked nervously. We could ask you the same thing, Lynn Sr. replied. What are you doing with your brother? Rita asked. Oh, I just want to be the first one to give him his birthday gift, Luanne replied. Luanne, turn around and put your hands behind your back, Lynn Sr. ordered. Well, I should have known that wouldn't be easy. Pulling the needle out of her pocket, she lunged at her dad, attempted to jab him with the needle, but he managed to grab her wrist. Luanne smirked and then went to kick him, only for him to grab her by the ankle. "Idiot," she said, reaching into her own pockets as she grabbed the another needle and jabbed it into the side of her arm, which was holding her other arm. Lynn Sr., let go of her, and stumbled before everything went dark. After the flashback, the officer turned to Rita. "I take it your husband was out and you were following the same fate?" he asked. "Yes," she replied. "Well then, I'm sure you're all aware of your son having a friend named Paige." "Yes," Rita replied, both parents not liking where this was going. "Well, it turns out that your daughter kidnapped her and skinned her head." Both parents could barely keep their dinners down after hearing that. "Is she alive?" Lynn Sr. asked. "Yes, in fact, she was the one who made the call." Both parents were relieved before their eyes widened. "What about her other daughters upstairs?" Rita exclaimed. Before she and her husband could race upstairs, the paramedics and police following, they found that each girl had their head tilted to the side with a red dot on their necks. The paramedics reduced that, as two parents were. Their daughters had been drugged as well, and it will wear off soon. Once it's confirmed that the girls would be fine, Lynn Sr. turned to the officer closest to him and said in the sternest tone possible, "Sir, I do not want that monster ever released." "I'm not the one to make that call. However, I do agree with you 100%. The officers then went to examine the crime scene. As Lincoln and Paige re-entered the Loud House, they were greeted by an officer. "Hey kids, can we please get an account on what happened here, please?" The officer asked kindly as the two kids nodded, explained to the officer what had happened to them, with Paige starting off first. Once she was done, Lincoln was about to give his word when they heard a loud, "My baby!" And the next thing he knew, his bone was crushing hugged him. It was his mom who was now bawling. Lynn Sr. had been slightly confused when he saw Paige looking perfectly fine, having to be told that her head had been skinned, but when he saw the beaker on the overdrive in his son's hand, he realized what had happened. Walking up to Paige and kneeling down so that he was eye level with her, and put his hand on her shoulders. "Paige, I'm gonna have to stop you right there. You don't have to apologize, seeing as you had no idea what that psycho bitch was truly up to, and I'm pretty sure that she ends up locked up in the asylum for all this." "Honestly, me too," Lynn Sr. replied, before he stood up. "Come on, let's go inform your parents that you're okay," he said. Paige nodded and followed him while the other officer tried to get Lincoln's account of what happened. It was around 3 a.m. when everyone had finally left, and Rita and Lynn Sr. had been informed that a crew would come around tomorrow to examine and dismantle what was left of the death trap. They were told that Luanne would be under constant watch at the hospital. Once she was released from the hospital, she would be immediately escorted to jail, where she'll await her trial. Paige's parents had come to pick her up. When they found out what happened and how they threatened to sue the Loud family, but a firm protest from Paige eliminated that threat. She had also got her parents to bring over the gift that she had gotten Lincoln for his birthday. Due to Lincoln deciding to cancel his birthday party at Gus's Games and Grub, the two parents were now in the lounge room at the couch, with their son between them, comforting him as the weight of this whole incident finally came crashing down on him. "I can't believe how close we were to losing you," Rita said, as she gently stroked Lincoln's back. "It's a good thing our big man here is as strong as he was, otherwise Luanne might have not stopped him in time," Lynn Sr. said, before giving a sigh. "I just feel like I failed as a father and a husband because we couldn't stop her. Honey, don't blame yourself for all this. She caught you by the act. Heck, I would have had thought that I had her pinned down last night, but she managed to jab me in the needle as well." "I know, but still." He then looked at his wife, Rita. "I truly mean that I don't want her back in this house." Rita then pulled Lincoln into a hug and held him tightly while nodding. Somewhere at the very back of her mind, she was being told that it was wrong to disown a child, but the common sense overrode that, as she knew that if they did that, welcome Luanne back in their home, most likely they wouldn't have to live next door to the next day. "Well, this is a birthday I'll never forget," Lincoln said to his parents, giving him a tight hug while saying, "Happy birthday, Lincoln." "You know, son, everyone else has a bad birthday at least once," Lynn Sr. said, trying to lighten the mood. "I remember my worst birthday we were celebrating at the park. My friends and I were playing baseball, and I was running to catch the ball, but it wasn't there and where I was going, so I ended up ran head first into a tree." Rita laughed at that. And what really made it the bad birthday was that the ball was knocked down a beehive, which landed on my head. My dad said my head looked like a red balloon. Rita and Lincoln then laughed and pictured their husband, father, with a bee-stung head. Lana was the first out of all the sisters to wake up thanks to an alarm that zaps you awake. She wanted to be the first one to wish Lincoln happy birthday. As she got out of bed, she felt very off balance and then sluggish. By the time they reached her bedroom door, which was strangely open, she now just felt sluggish, just looking around the hall. She saw everyone's doors were open. Peeking into Lincoln's room, she saw that he was gone. Checking the other rooms and saw that he wasn't the only one missing besides Lincoln and was Luanne. Her sluggishness had completely been gone by the time she made downstairs. Looking in the lounge room, she saw an odd sight. Her parents were asleep, Dad as the recliner, and Mom on the couch with the sleeping Lincoln, resting his head on her lap. Walking up to Lincoln, she gently shook him, but when she got to the reaction, she grinned. "Okay, Lincoln, it's tickle time." After for a few seconds of tickling, Lincoln was having a laughing fit. His laughing woke up the parents, who looked exhausted. Realizing that they were both gave sad sighs, they had hoped that last night was just as a horrible nightmare. "Oh yeah, two could play that game," Lincoln said, and he began tickling Lana back. The two parents smiled at this, and Lincoln then stopped and pulled his giggling sister into a hug. "Happy birthday, Lincoln," she giggled out. "Thanks, Lana." It was then he realized that he was downstairs. "What? Where am I?" He then trailed off and he remembered what had happened last night, getting a sad look on his face. Looking at his parents, he saw that they had shared the same expression. What's going on? Did something happen?" Lana asked. "We'll wait for everyone to get up first, and then we'll talk," said her father. Then in a tone that didn't argue, "Lana may be only 6, but judging by how sad Lincoln and the parents' were, she knew something really bad had happened." "How are you feeling this morning, you two?" their mother asked. "I feel fine," Lincoln said. "It was hard for me to get up this morning," Lana admitted, "but otherwise you're not in any pain?" "Nope," they replied with the union, as their mother and father gave a sigh of relief. There was a knock on the door, which Lynn Sr. got up to answer it. Lana and Lincoln watched as their father guided several officers as well as the same other people in the kitchen. "You two stay here and watch cartoons," their mother said calmly, before she got up and followed her husband. One by one, the Loud sisters woke up and made their way downstairs. When they saw that Lincoln wasn't in bed, thankfully they were all drawn out of the TV being on, and they all gave Lincoln hugs and kisses, while also saying happy birthday to him. Even though he was smiling, Luna and Lori could tell that he was forcing a smile on his face. "Hey bro, what's the matter? It's your birthday today. You should be happy," Luna asked, which got everyone's attention. Just as Lincoln was about to reply, their mother interrupted. "Ah, good, you're all up." They all looked at her. "Kids, can you all go to Lori and Lenny's room, please? Your father and I will be up in a minute. We have some serious talk we need to talk about." She then left to go get her husband. Soon the whole family was up in Lori and Lenny's room. After doing a head count, the parents said, "Okay, kids, so last night there was an incident involving Luanne, your brother, and Paige." The two parents informed their children about the events that occurred last night, while Lincoln informing them about more graphic details as well as the fight he had with Luanne. To say to the girls they were shocked as an understatement. They were absolutely floored. The girls were all now huddled around Lincoln, comforting him. Lynn Sr. gave a sigh. "So kids, Luanne isn't going to be living here anymore, and your mother and I have agreed to disown her." "I say you should lock her up in a padded cell and throw the key," Luna said, with her sisters all agreeing with voicing their own opinions. Their parents were not disagreeing. Lincoln then got up and said, "I'll be back." Before he left the room, he returned a minute later with his phone and showed them the pictures that he had taken from her sketchbook. His family was absolutely horrified by every part of the trap that would have done to him. "Oh my God, I thought Luanne was a bit unstable, but I never expected her to be like this," Lori said, while some of the sisters she held Lincoln protectively. "Don't worry, bro. We'll make sure she never lays a hand on you ever again," Luna said, with the rest of her sisters agreeing. "Hey, Mom," Lincoln started. "Yes, sweetie? Could you cancel my birthday party today at the Gus Games and Grub? I just don't feel up to it today." "Are you sure?" Lincoln nodded. "I think it'd be too much of a downer. Alright, Lynn, you called Gus's Games and Grub and canceled the party. I'll call up Lincoln's friends and tell them the party's off, Rita said. Lynn Sr. nodded and the two left, leaving the girls with their brother. Needless to say that it happened the worst birthday ever for Lincoln. Well, the part with he and Paige kissing was a bit of a highlight, but his sisters didn't really need to know about that just yet. For the rest of the day, Lincoln had been complete and total depression. Nothing anyone could ever do to get him to smile. Heck, even he was blowing out the candles on his birthday and opening his presents. The family could tell he was forcing a smile onto his face. On the last present he opened, he looked at his family. Thanks for trying to make this day great for me. His smile finally stopped and tried to tear up. I'm sorry I've been such a downer today, he said. His parents embraced him from both sides. Girls, I think it'll be best if you just go to your rooms for a while. Your father and I have to have a talk with your brother, Rita said. With absolutely no objection, the girls left. Rita and Lynn Sr. pulled up the chairs and sat on the opposite sides of Lincoln. Sweetie, we know the main reason why you're upset, but we want you to know that this was about what about that made you upset, Rita said. I just can't believe she wanted to torture and kill me, just because I said she wasn't funny. We're also to blame for this, Lynn Sr. started, making his wife and son look at him. If we had stopped her from making these large-scale pranks years ago, this whole event and many others of the past could have been prevented. Why did you let her do all those pranks when then just ground her for a month? I get that you would want to express ourselves, but shouldn't there be a limit to what we can and can't do? Lincoln said. Yes, it will be limiting what you kids can do with expressing yourselves. I'm also worried that Luanne will find some way to break out and then she'll either come and kill me or everyone. I have spoken with the police, and they're taking your sister to a secure mental institution out of town. Once she's released from the hospital, she'll be kept there until the courts decide what to do. Though honestly, I could see that place her being her new home after what she tried to do, Lynn Sr. said.